I'm live. Oh my God. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining. I've got a computer over here where I'm going to be keeping an eye on the chat. So uh, forgive me if I'm looking away. It's just because I'm trying to see what the heck is going on over here. And before we get too deep into this, I just want to welcome everybody to the party. Um, my name's Chuck Cassidy. Welcome to my shop. We've been here for, I don't know, about a year now. This is our third shop, so we won't be here much longer, sadly. But thank you for everyone. I hope everyone's having a great Thursday night. Join me if you want. I'm having a Cutwater mango margarita. Yep, still good. Anyway, I had a couple of topics actually planned for today, if you can believe that. And then either before or after I talk about those topics and give some updates about what's going on here, what the next month of my life in the shop looks like, we can open it up and start talking questions. I'd love to take questions, answer your questions about school life, schoolie conversions, anything bus related, hell, anything. So let's go ahead and get started, shall we? I've even got I got my collegiate whiteboard and a marker. How cool is this, huh? Um, I'm not watching football. Is there a football game happening? I don't know. Um, Bart, thank you for being here. Paul Honeyman, as always, nice to see you. Um, Ben is here. He's in the back. We just had a meeting with our team, and the team I'm talking about is the team that we're going to be building with on a show called Gutted. And if you haven't seen it, they taped this time last year. It's a build contest. There is an RV, a van, and a schoolie, and then three teams, each working on each one of those rigs. And they have about 5 days to complete the rig and do a full conversion on it, or whatever it is that they might be doing in there. And anyways, our team is awesome. Ben's on it. Alyssa Regretless is on it. Justin from Gilligan Phantom / Mobile Dwellings is on it. Basically Nomads is on it. Devin from it, and then Kelson J are on it. And if you don't know those people, look them up on the internet. They're awesome. Our team is great, and every time we have a meeting, I become more confident in the fact that we're going to dominate, and that feels really good. So just wrapped up a meeting with them, and I guess that leads me into just a quick update on what is going on behind me, what the next few months look like around here, really just the next few weeks. Um, if you don't know, we are closing our shop down here in Denver. We're not out of the game, but we're not going to be taking on full conversions. We're pretty much only going to be doing mobile work, solar installs, systems installs, potentially roof raises, and helping people find buses and offering consultations. But because we're moving out of here, that means we've got a lot of tools and stuff that had to be sold. And I don't know. Look, there's Ben. Bye. Hi, Ben. Ben's taking off for the day. It's late here. Um, I'll see you later, Ben. You can leave that door open. Um, Wes Lewis of Transcend Existence. He's got a new shop in Wichita, Dark Wolf Artisans. He's actually buying most of our big heavy tools and stationary equipment and our forklifts and our pallet racking and all that stuff. So I'm taking my bus, which is right here, and we got a trailer for it, and I'm delivering all of that stuff to Wes the week, well, like a couple days before Gutted begins, which is in Kansas City. Going to Gutted, competing in Gutted, winning Gutted, and then getting in my bus, going back to Wichita, painting my bus, and then coming home and emptying out the shop and moving out. And that means I've got to get my bus, I've got to get the windows installed in it, I've got to get spray foam done, which means the wiring needs to be done. Anything that needs to happen before spray foam needs to be done. And I've got my spray foam date on the 22nd. So I've got about a little over a week to get all that shit together, on top of trying to make money, keep the shop running, and be alive in the meantime. So it's going to be really crazy. I'm going to be doing my best. Actually, I'm going to change up the video format. I think next couple of videos are going to be maybe short format, kind of rough edited. And I'm just going to be covering all the stuff I've got to do. I've got to get it ready mechanically, put the windows in. I mean, tons of work. So, but it'll be a good day in the life of what it's like to actually be in a schoolie shop. I mean, we bust ass around here. We were schoolie builders first and influencers second, and well, I think that'll show when you see what life is actually like around here. I'm good. See you later, Ben. Everyone say bye to Ben. See you tomorrow. We've only been saying that for 7 years. Anyway, so that said, you're caught up on my life. I also have a house I'm trying to renovate. Um, yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and tune into the comments here. And if you have questions about bus life, bus conversions, anything, throw it in here and I'll answer these for a minute. And then I have some electrical stuff I want to cover on the old whiteboard. And yeah, and we'll go from there. So I'm taking it on over here. That dog behind me is Ben's dog, Bo. He's been our shop dog for 7 years. He's a total sweetheart. So here we go. Craig C. Mini split question. When you shorten the copper lines from the standard 25, do you need to evacuate some of the Freon? I may have missed that. Well, Craig, with the Pioneer, you don't. And Freon is a certain type of refrigerant that's R12, but you're right. In general, the refrigerant on most of those units, you don't need to get rid of extra. So you're good. These actually use R134A, which is also in the process of now being phased out. Freon is like Kleenex or Coca-Cola. It's kind of like a brand name that's become a catch-all for things like that. Saw a builder, they use domestic double-paned argon-filled windows. What's your opinion on that? As long as the glass is tempered, I would feel pretty good about it. Anytime you go double pane, there's the risk of getting condensation in between the panes, especially as your rig goes up and down in elevation. So that would be something I would be thinking about, but it may or may not be an issue. So, hey, talked with you today about your AC. I was happy. Jeff, what up, man? Fun to pick your brain about the bulkhead fittings and stuff. Always trying to improve our process over here. And I finally got a real HVAC guy on the line that who was gracious enough to let me pick his brain. Trying to make the installs cleaner than even the last video I did. Zachary Taylor, not Zachary Taylor Thomas, are you? Anyone? Anyone? Or wait, was it Jonathan Taylor Thomas? That's who it was. That's who it was. Sorry, home improvement. I heard you talk about the expensive newer diesel exhaust systems. What specifically is so costly in the newer models? It's not just the exhaust systems, it's the emission systems. What is expensive about them? Well, it could be a number of things. In the beginning, we had EGR valves. Those could fail. That could be a problem. EGR systems is just a whole other system that you need to maintain. Then later on, you get into things like diesel particulate filters with regen and all that's encompassed in that, which is many hours of video worth of topic. And then you get into the DEF systems, which are diesel exhaust fluid. You're injecting urea into the exhaust. These are all expensive, complicated systems that have nothing to do with moving the vehicle and everything to do with reducing emissions, which I'm all about. I love clean air. But when a vehicle leaves the fleet, the costs of maintaining those systems are huge. So that is why I avoid them at all costs. I would never personally buy a bus newer than 2003. So that's why the bus here, my bus is a 96, all mechanical. There's not even a computer on it. So Trucker Bear, do you plan on, thank you, by the way, for $5. That's nice. Do you plan on traveling and doing bus conversions? I won't be doing full conversions, but I will be traveling around helping people out. I'm not probably ever going to do a full conversion again. I can't stress the amount of brain space that they take up in my mind because I have a fixation on doing things as good as we can. And it's been fun to offer that for the last few years, but I'm done doing that. So, but I'm happy to consult, tell you all, like share all my knowledge. That's why I started a YouTube channel, because I'm obviously not going to put myself out of business sharing all this information. I just want people to know it. I want other YouTubers, other people who claim to be professionals to benefit from my years of experience, because I see plenty of professionals on YouTube making really bad mistakes and decisions. And so I'm hoping they can copy me, honestly. I'm not going to name names, but you probably know who I'm talking about. How do you override the engine fan to turn on earlier, lower temp? Cummins 24 valve, Allison 643. You're gonna have to. That's a computer thing. You're gonna have to talk to Cummins. It's going to involve reprogramming or reflashing the ECU. May or may not be possible. Just one reason why I don't like computer controlled buses. Um, oh, we're getting lots of questions. Thank you all for being here and participating. This is really fun. And welcome to my shop. If you're just joining us, I'm Chuck Cassidy. Obviously, you clicked on my channel. No more R12 Alive. That's right. Have you ever used diesel fired on demand hot water heaters? If so, what brand do you like? There. Okay, so diesel fired on demand water heaters, there's not many of those. I've installed aqua hot systems before. They're about as close as it gets, I would say. I mean, it's like limitless hot water. It's still not a true on demand system, like a propane system or something like that. But that was a cool unit. I mean, just the materials though. The system, it was $13,000 just for the boiler and all of that. I mean, it was going into a rig that ended up costing just shy of $300,000. It was really cool, but I'm a big fan, if you have this space in your build, of doing a tanked system and not an on-demand system. And I'll get into that a little bit when it's time to bust out the whiteboard. But I do like diesel-fired appliances, so that's really cool. Mini split fan being overdriven while going down the road. Can you run it while moving? I mean, everybody says this, but I don't know anyone who's ever had personal experience with it. So let's get someone with personal experience to chime in. I know lots of people with these. We've installed these on lots of rigs, and I have yet to have that come up. So if someone can chime in, that would be sweet. As far as I know, it just triggers an error code. You have to turn the machine off and back on. But again, that's just from me looking into it. I don't know personally of anyone experiencing that. So here we go. Is it realistic to try and attempt a solo roof raise at 20 years old on a 4 or 5 window short schoolie? Um, well, be careful if you're raising a 4 or 5 window bus. You can't go that high because your wheelbase is so short. You're really going to compromise your stability. So, it's totally realistic to attempt it. I mean, I hope you have a welder practice welding before you start on the structural stuff. Um, and buy all of your hat channels from SKOOLIE.com because that'll make things easier for you. And don't raise it that high. I wouldn't go more than 8 inches on a bus that short. So, um, Zachary Taylor, 12th president. There we go. Thank you. I got confused because it was like Zachary Ty Bryant or something on the cast of Home Improvement and then Jonathan Taylor Thomas. So I got confused. Rockford, yeah, you're right. 2003 and older only buses. That is correct. In 2004, new emission standards came into place, which mandated EGR for diesels. You said you would be wiring the electric before spray foaming. What are your thoughts on starting with the electrical conduit first instead? I will never run conduit in my bus. I think it's a huge waste of time. So there's my thoughts on that. There is nothing wrong with having your wiring totally encased in spray foam. The idea that a length of wire run will somehow break magically when it's totally immovable and encased in spray foam is like an old wives' boogeyman tale. I used to run a bus company before I got into all of this bus conversion stuff. And we had electrical problems all the time, but it was never on the wire run. It was always at the terminal ends because things would become loose or they would become corroded. End of story. And buses come from the factory without any of their wiring in conduit. It's all low voltage stuff. So I did conduit once. I will never do it again. And that is my position. But if you want to, by all means, to me, it is not worth the time and the hassle. So on this bus, I'm going to do as much of the wiring as I can beforehand. Probably not realistic that I will, given the short time frame. But yeah, conduit's a no-go for this guy. Um, so here we go. Blah, blah, blah. Let's see. Don't delete your emission. There are a couple of people that have made the news where their truck. Yeah, Jeff Jones. I don't advocate deleting your emissions equipment. Just don't buy a bus that has it. When you skinned your roof raise, I noticed you didn't put on the wall skin. You didn't put the wall skin all the way up into the rivets above the windows. Yeah, there's a reason I didn't do that because pulling all those rivets is a huge pain in the ass. And we use ratchet straps, if you saw, to wedge these sheets up and in there. So they're captured. Combine that with the fact that the drip edge of the gutter is almost a full 2 inches below that. And then it's getting backed with spray foam and sealant. I'm not worried at all. But you certainly could do that if you were up to the job. But keep in mind, when you pop all those rivets up, that skin's going to want to pop out. And it gets tricky when you do that. Um, Opinion on roof paint. There's a big tropical argument. Yeah, we don't use that shit anymore. We just do bright white um, enamel roof paint. The tropical stuff, silicone based stuff, you can't. It's great. You put it down, but if you go to add or reseal something later, the truth is that you just can't. Nothing sticks to silicone, and but dirt somehow seems to stick to it, which is incredible. So your roof looks like shit, and you can't make watertight joints to it anymore. So we don't use that paint, but a lot of amateurs and even pros do. And it's great for sealing the roof. It's just very problematic if you ever need to make a change down the road. And I also think it looks ugly. So on my bus, you'll just be seeing a white, normal automotive paint that matches all the other white trim on my bus. And that's it. Um, so here we go. No more 80% builds. That's correct. When mounting appliances and cabinetry to the floor, do you screw only through your finished floor and OSB floor or straight through the entire subfloor insulation into the floor pan? Um, when mounting appliances and cabinetry. So in general, the cabinetry actually gets screwed into the wall as the primary means of support and then into the subfloor as well. We're talking about entire sheets of 3/4 inch thick Advantech subflooring, which is it has excellent fastener holding power. Unless it was a seat belt, I wouldn't go all the way through the the pan. I don't think there's a reason to because you're not whatever happens in an accident or whatever, if it's enough to pull the entire sheet of plywood up along with it, whatever's mounted to it, um, at that point we're talking about catastrophic failure of the passenger compartment, and that's a standard I'm not interested in building to. Frankly, you can do whatever you want, but I don't find a need for that. So um Bart Borg, my boy. I drank all your whiskey, by the way. Not before tonight, but in general I did. So thank you, Bart. I mentioned briefly the propane water heater I had that caught fire the other day. Getting an electrical one now, Uncle Bob, before I could shop for myself. Bart, great topic. In Alyssa's build, Regretless, we did a propane on demand unit, and that's been awesome for her. She's in a shorty, so she doesn't have room for like a big tank, and it's a great fit for that application. But in my bus, I'm doing a tanked 28-gallon electric water heater, and it's actually going to be set up as a dump load so that if my batteries are full, but it's 2 in the afternoon, my panels are still making juice, it will divert that extra electricity straight into the heating element of my water heater, which I think I have here. Yeah, look, it's my DC 24-volt DC water heater element, and it'll be controlled by a relay that's controlled by the smart side of my solar system. So if my batteries are full, it will send extra power into my tank. I got the tank turned up as high as it'll go, I think 160 degrees. And then I use a thermostatic mixing valve on the water coming out of it to blend it with cold water so that no matter what the temperature is inside the tank, the water getting delivered to my appliances and fixtures is only 120 degrees. That's what I'm doing. And that's a part of what I'll be getting into when it's whiteboard time, because I'm going to be picking apart an influencer's electrical setup that is just atrocious, in my opinion. And they're touting it as something very special. And I think it's going to be very, especially sucky. Anyway, oh my gosh. Thank you for everyone who is here. I'm going to be doing this until the top of the next hour, answering your questions. Chuck Cassidy, this is my shop. And yeah, hit me with your questions. Let's have a good time and let me know. If you can't hear me or anything. Let's see. Conduit is also bad for insulation purposes. You got a good point, Paul. Everywhere there's conduit, there is an insulation. I have a parasitic draw killing the batteries on my 99 GMC short bus. Could it be the radio? Sure. Yeah. Yep. If you do spray foam, one conduit, run farther, install a wire. I don't understand that, but that's okay. Um, have you seen the plug and play EcoFlow? If so, what do you think of it? Sure. Yeah, I've seen it. I have an aversion to those because and I've actually Anchor just sent me a unit to review, which I will be reviewing. But if it's your full-time home, I don't like having a system with no redundancy. So if your EcoFlow Delta Pro XP 6000 fails, you're fucked. Um, which could be a nuisance at the worst, or potentially or a nuisance at the best, or life threatening at the worst. Although I'm sure they will find their ways into a lot of people's builds, because I think a lot of people are intimidated by electricity, and there are people intimidated by it. There are people who struggle with learning it, and then there are other people who just choose not to learn it. I was watching another bus life influencer's video today, and he was mistaking a battery negative for a chassis ground, and they're the same thing. And I'm like, this guy's building professionally. That makes me super nervous, because they're electrically equivalent in a DC application. So like, yeah, do I want that guy setting up, start to finish, set multiple component Victron system? Probably not. So maybe EcoFlow Delta is better for someone like him, or better for somebody who isn't interested in learning all the nuances. I think that's fine, and I'm not here to cast judgment. I think it's important to not overextend yourself and go beyond what you feel comfortable doing, or what you have the capacity to do safely. I mean, the number one cause of fires in RVs is electricity. It's not propane. So keep that in mind when you're doing your electrical. If you get into a situation where you get confused about if something's a negative or a ground or a neutral or a ground or any of that stuff, or conductor sizing and things like that, um, don't, I mean, you can call me. I'm available for consultation, or just don't do that. Pick a different system. So those eco flows, they represent a totally new paradigm, and that's cool. To me, the things that are most important are the battery chemistry on those. I'm not interested in lithium ion batteries, because they have thermal runaway properties. I'm more interested in lithium iron phosphate batteries. Those don't have the thermal runaway problems, and they also have a longer cycle life. I mean, I'm going to do a whole video about this, but like Jackery, their stuff is garbage. You can get maybe 1,000 cycles out of them, which is no doubt better than lead acid. But if it was lithium iron phosphate, you would get 3 to 5,000 cycles. So, and plus, when you buy a Jackery unit, you're mostly just paying for influencers to get their units for free. Anyway, can't wait to do that video. That'll be a good one. So anyway, the eco flows, yeah, if they're good for you, great. If not, great. Whatever. Here we go. Have you found emergency roof hatches local in Colorado? No, I have not. I'm generally getting rid of the emergency roof hatches. So is it necessary to use sealant between the skin layers, or just overlap? I just overlap, seal from the outside inside, and then because I use spray foam, that's my ultimate sealant. This bus is getting a whole coating of epoxy primer before I paint it, so it's going to be sealed up nice and tight. I get lots of questions about that. Your mileage may vary, and I do regret not covering it specifically in the video I did about skinning the bus. We just are so used to always using spray foam, always sealing it afterwards, that quite frankly, we don't think about it anymore. Since you won't be filming your bathroom build out, could you lend some Oh, I will be filming my bathroom build out. I don't know where you got that idea. I'm going to try to film everything I do inside of this bus. So I will show you how I do it. If you were to recommend someone for solar, who would that be? That's me, Eric P. Have you not been paying attention? Oh my God, I'm your solar guru, dude. I can design you a system. I can sell you the components. I can save you money and guarantee that you'll get something that will work. And in about 10 minutes, I'm going to get into a solar system that some influencers designed that they think is hot shit. That's actually total garbage. I can't wait to share it with you, because I'm the unfun guy in the room, the know-it-all, right? For storm chasers out there, how would you prepare your bus for blizzards and icy passes? Chains, are there other better options? Great question. My friend Brock just installed a set of on-spot auto chains out here in Colorado. It's pretty common. The bus behind me actually has automatic tire chains. You flip a switch, a little rotating wheel deploys chains under your wheels as you drive. That's the best way to go. If your bus doesn't have it, though, be ready for about a $7,000 or $8,000 bill. So, yikes. Would you take on a roof raise and rough in, and then leave complete plans to follow and finish with? I don't think I would ever leave someone complete plans. I'm not that kind of guy. You need to be able to, in my opinion, to design and figure this shit out on your own, or you're not going to be able. If you can't map it out and figure out how to build something, then maybe you should reconsider what you're doing. I don't know. As far as the rough-ins go, maybe, like, it's just a lot of work, to be frank with you. Like most rough-ins we do, where say we do a roof raise, we install the new windows, we run the wires, the plumbing, we insulate, do all that. That still is 60 to $70,000. And if I'm going to do that on the road, I would be there for like probably 3 months, maybe 4 months. And that's just more stationary time than I really want to spend somewhere. I'm happy to consult across for the whole duration, remotely or through Skype or whatever. But these projects are huge. I mean, a full conversion like the one behind me with the roof raise and stuff, we're talking 1,300 man hours, you know, for me as a professional. So I'm really not interested. Like I can't stress it enough. I'm not interested in doing the full conversion work anymore. I want to help people do it on their own. That's what got me into this. And yeah, I'm sure I know there are people disappointed. I'm flattered that so many folks really want our help and our expertise, but I'm available for consultation. And honest to God, if you talk to people who have talked to me, I can save you tons of time and money if you let me. So there is that option. But yeah, unfortunately, we are pretty much done. Best short bus maker, in my opinion, it's going to be Collins Body on either the GMC or the Ford chassis before 2004. Collins bodies have the highest roof. So I'm not a 7.3 junkie like a lot of folks are. They're good, but the Duramax diesels have a great reputation too, within a certain year range as well. So, um, only 30 people watching now. I don't know if this is right though. Maybe more people are watching on your end. 9 to 4. Oh, there we go. Thank you, Paul. On a rear engine, any issues with relocating the air intake to below the shelf? No, not usually. One thing you have to be aware of is that the lower you go with your air intake, the more likely it is to suck up dust and stuff. So, like on the bus behind me, we relocated it down to even with basically the belt line of the engine bay here. I don't think he's going to have any problems. The cool thing about being in a schoolie is you're done driving on those urban routes and stuff. You're probably going to be mostly on the highway. And so, in theory, the air that you're sucking into your engine is going to be cleaner, less dust and stuff. So, thanks for the likes. Thanks for being here, everybody. I apologize if I get opinionated and ranty, but I've just been doing this forever and I have strong feelings. Um, Look at the state of them knees. I was spending a lot of time half the work we do in the shop is fixing other people's builds. And so today, me and Ben were welding additional supports onto a roof rack of a short bus. This lady got done dirty by a welder. And so, yeah, my knees are filthy. DC to DC chargers never seem to work right from comments I've seen. Thoughts? Renogy manual says hook to starter battery, but should hook to alternator. Well, the first thing I can say, Canadian guy, is don't use Renogy because their stuff is trash. Yeah, said it. Second thing I can say is, yeah, if you can, hook a line straight off the alternator. It's going to minimize voltage drop. I was just explaining this to somebody because I was reminded, talking to that person, about what we had going on with Alyssa's build, Regretless, because she has a DC to DC charger. In her case, we were using a pretty burly unit. It's made by a company called Sterling. It's capable of doing about 900 watts of DC to DC charging, which when you convert that down to 12 volts, it's between 60 and 70 amps continuously being pulled from an alternator. Alternators these days, man, they just don't make them like they used to. They say that it's 150 volt or 150 amp alternator, but yeah, like maybe for 10 minutes. The continuous duty is what you're concerned with. And if you ever see a 150 amp continuous duty alternator, it's a whole different world of construction. It's in a different universe. That thing is beefy looking. So there's your first problem. But yes, if you can, oftentimes what happens in a stock rig, the wire from the alternator to the batteries can be quite small. It might be like 6 gauge or something, which is a pretty small wire. Whereas the wire from the batteries to the starter might be 2-aught or 4-aught, which is like the size of this marker, very thick. So if you are connecting your DC to DC charger off your battery, you're getting a ton of voltage drop on that short run between the alternator and the battery, even though when you look at the battery, all the wires connected to it appear to be big. So on Alyssa's bus, she was having a problem. So I went in and actually bypassed that route and added a direct route with a thicker gauge wire straight to the battery. And that fixed her situation because when that thing was pulling full juice, it was causing a lot of voltage drop. So that's the big problem there. So don't use Renogy ever, first and foremost. Just don't. And anybody who does, I mean, it's just a matter of time before you get burned and you experience how bad their customer service is. They don't stand behind their products. Their products are garbage. We've learned this all the hard way. That's the reason why we only sell Victron and Sterling equipment. So, and I'm not saying that because I'm here to make money. Like, if there was a better product, I would be so happy to sell it, but it doesn't exist yet. So outside of not using your energy, making sure you have big cables from your alternator to your battery, or your alternator directly to your DC to DC charger, which is optimal. That's huge. And then lastly, making sure your alternator is up to the job. If you check all those boxes and only use high quality equipment, you shouldn't have issues. We have buses out there, with years under their belt, charging their batteries with those Sterling DC to DC chargers at 900 watts without issue. So I'm doing on my bus, but like I said, I'll be tapping straight off the alternator to my DC to DC charger. So I hope that clears things up for you, because that is a very oftentimes essential part of a conversion's power system. So looking for your first schoolie and you're a bit leery of getting a bus from an auction because you don't have that personal connection from buying from an individual. Yeah, Redneck Tech 70. That's why, one of the things that I do is I keep an eye on the local auctions, the good ones that I can find, I will buy. And I think if you look back, I have a video where we picked up a bus from auction, and we go through it. We fix anything that's wrong. And then if you buy it from us, of course, you have the option of test driving it. I'll send you the information. We'll usually do an oil analysis. At the end of the day, you're buying a vehicle that's probably 20 years old. So there's no guarantees, nothing's perfect, but yeah, in my experience buying vehicles from auction, for myself personally, for the conversions, for our clients, and then for the bus company I used to run, if even with my expertise, it was about 1 in 10 buses ended up having some type of catastrophic issue that disqualified them, that wasn't visible immediately upon inspection. So I'm not talking about rust or anything like that. I'm talking about a internal problem in the engine or the transmission, or something that would essentially cost more to fix than the bus is worth. And in general, I'm not a fan of replacing engines on buses before you do a conversion. I think it's a waste of money. Um, there are folks out there who spent $20,000 replacing an engine on a bus. It comes with a 2-year warranty, but that's just on the engine. The rest of the bus is 20 years old. Your transmission goes, that's $6,000, So I don't think that's money well spent. I think the money well spent is before you buy it, get an oil analysis done, check for blow by, be a savvy buyer, and do the best you can up front, and realize that once you start the conversion process, that's when you're married to the bus. If you have a major mechanical problem before you start the conversion, ditch it. Part it out if you have to, sell the damn thing and start over. Because I mean, we found a Cummins 12 valve, mid-size 32-foot bus with extreme 109,000 miles with no blow by and a perfect oil analysis. We found that for under 10 grand. And so why would you, spend double that on I don't know. You can do the math yourself, but that's just not something I would do. Buses are plentiful. Cash is usually the thing that's in short supply, in my opinion. So, what about molten salt battery technology? Yeah, I mean, that would be cool if you had the room here. So much for the Jackery sponsorship. Thank you, Rob. Yeah, Jackery can go F themselves, honestly. They sell shitty products. But most people don't know the things that I know about battery chemistry and stuff. And so they think it's dope, and they see all of their favorite influencers with Jackery shit in every picture. And that's fine, whatever. I truly don't care. I mean, it's your money. I just want to, I want to help you. And I hate seeing people, fraudsters make money selling shit. Anyway, please hit me up, Tyler Thomas, about solar. I love that. I'm going to fly. Okay, so in about 5 minutes, I'm going to stop looking at the chat and I'm going to go into a lecture. Professor Chuck is in the house because I just want to talk about some influencer bullshit that I saw that I don't want to see other people get in the same trap of. So I'm an asshole, but I'm your asshole. Like, not literally, but kind of literally. Can old Caserio cause a parasitic battery draw on a 99 short bus? Absolutely. Yes. Look at 106, 108, 113. I'm just grateful that anyone's here. This is my first live chat back. I'm going to really make a commitment to doing these midweek live chats from here on out, and sticking with the premieres on Sunday. And so here we go. There's a difference between being opinionated and being knowledgeable. I would like to believe that all my opinions are grounded in knowledge, but there's always that flair of personality mixed with my own traumas and biases that change things here. How many man hours for schoolie conversion on a short bus? It's still a lot. It's probably 600 to 700 hours to do it right the way we do it. People do like a 30-day build, and I'm like, wow, that build's going to be a piece of shit. You just can't fit the work in. I mean, and by piece of shit, I mean like bad insulation, not doing full demo, not a good, the fit and finish of materials will be different. The solar system is probably going to be inadequate. I mean, there's different levels, but around here, we build for people who want a full time in 4 seasons and have a rig that they can count on to be an asset, a protector, their refuge, their sanctuary. If you want something that's not going to be like that, of course you can do it in less time. Be my guest. And like the first few buses I lived in, they were like that, because I was in my early 20s. And when you're in your early 20s, you can tolerate that kind of shit. But when I got into my late 20s, I was like, if I'm going to live in a bus, it needs to feel like a house. I need to be able to take a shower. I need to live in Colorado and stay warm in the winter and cool in the summer. And that's when I started doing things the serious way. And that's what we do here. That's why we are so expensive. That's how I've gotten to learn so much, though, frankly, is because of a commitment to making the most high performance conversions available. And yeah, I would get on my high horse and say that that's what we do. I think we have been the best conversion company for a number of years now. Um, anyway, please speak about adding four-wheel drive to the front of a 1990 Thomas 5-speed manual 466 Snotty. Is it possible? Jeff, I tell people with enough time and money, anything is possible. I've inquired in the past on behalf of clients who wanted that work done. It is so hard to find a shop that will take on a project like that on a vehicle that old. Best of luck to you. I don't have any advice other than be ready to give up or do it yourself. So Paul, so far that says Jack Rainer Energy sponsorships out the window. I'm gonna see how many sponsorships I can blackball myself from, honestly. Hey Chuck, I'm gonna hang my 75-gallon gray water tank based off the video you made. Would you recommend 1/8-inch thick angle iron? 1/8-inch thick is great. Look at the tensile strength of steel. It's absurd. A 75-gallon water tank is only gonna be, it's under 600 pounds, like right around 600 pounds. The tensile strength of 1/8-inch thick steel angle that you'd be using for the drops on that, man, it's gonna be in the thousands of pounds range. So, um, talking about tires and tire care, what the mic? Yeah, the number one enemy of tires on a schoolie is time and sunlight. Every tire on a school bus, I would say like 90% are more likely, assuming you don't have a fucked up suspension that's wearing them irregularly, is most likely to age out instead of wear out. Back when I ran the bus company, the DOT doesn't let you run tires over 7 years old in passenger service. So in 7 years, most of these tires, man, you can get 50,000 miles easily out of them with the tread depth that they have. So for the average schoolie owner doing 50,000 miles in 7 years, that's quite a bit. Um, and truthfully, they're probably good for more like 80 to 100,000 miles. So they will age out before they wear out. So I recommend putting tire covers over them when you're parked, to keep the UV rays off the rubber and keep it from breaking down. But outside of that, unless you have really deep pockets, I'm a fan of running the best quality retreads or recaps you can on the back tires. And then you can only legally run non-recaps or virgin rubber tires on your steers. But they're expensive. It's literally where the rubber meets the road. So it's worth having good tires. But that's probably one of the number one things that we do on the buses that we buy at auction that we then resell for people is we look at the tires, we assess them based on the date, condition, and tread life remaining, and replace them as needed. And I can tell you, all of the tires we've replaced had great tread, but they were older and dirt. So something to look at if you're buying a used bus. The tires look great in the picture. Ask for the date code. There's a date code, 4-digit code stamped on each tire, 2-digit week, 2-digit year. If it's over 7 years old, you got to replace it, in my opinion, to be safe. So, if a bus seems like a good deal, but it needs all 6 new tires, that could easily be $3,500, and that's not even getting fancy tires. So factor that in. Tires are not fun, but very important. Ben Winhome. National 48 volt 460 amp alternators matched with blah 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 blah. I'm not familiar with that product. The last 48 volt system I did, we used a oh man, who made the it was this custom alternator that I had a regulator. What was the brand of the regulator? It wasn't Wake Speed. It was another one. Anyways, it was a regulator that I was able to program and hook up to this alternator to control its current and stuff. That was cool. But I mean, 400 amps at 48 volts is 16,000 watts, which is quite frankly like way overkill in my opinion. The last system I was doing, that alternator could max at 90 amps. 90 amps at 48 volts is like over 4,000 watts, which is still more than enough to run all of your loads and charge the battery. So, God, I can't believe I'm forgetting the name of the company who made that alternator. But like, they wanted me to buy their alternator, which is about $3,000, and I found a new old stock leased Neville unit that I was able to reverse engineer and understand how to make work for $1,000. So that's pretty cool. God, but I can't remember the name. Anyway, okay, just a couple of minutes before I get into it. Jackery isn't good. What is it then? Well, anything that doesn't use lithium ion batteries. You want lithium iron phosphate. Stay tuned in the coming weeks. I'll be doing a review for a product from Anchor that is much better than the Jackery stuff. It's more expensive, but it's higher quality by far. Longer life, at least. Party in here, regretless. 50K in 2 years. Well, Bart, you're a special guy, if we haven't told you. 90 amps is welding capacity. Yeah, for sure. Especially, I mean, 48 volts is more than you usually use for welding anyways. We're talking, most welding is in the, well, I don't know, speculation, but as far as I know, it's between like 30 and 50 amps. So sucks getting old and forgetful. We're here for you. Who said I was old? Okay, so I think I'm going to go into the lecture thing. Thank you all for your awesome comments and questions. Makes me feel like this is time well spent. Plus, I like hanging out with y'all. So, cheers. I can tell I've been talking because I've only had about 2 sips of this. Not very good, but delicious. Regardless, best bus on YouTube. I might have to agree. Do you do the roof raise on sales buses? Yes, we do, but you have to ask nicely. Okay, so forgive me, everybody, as I hike up my drawers. I'm not going to be looking at the chat. I'm going to go off into a deep monologue dialogue about some influencer electrical setups that I saw. And I even got notes on my piece of cardboard here to help me through it. So I was cruising around the Instagram, as I'm sure probably many of you do today. And there was a bus out there proclaiming that their build was different than every other schoolie. It was more extreme and more gooder and all that stuff. And the funny thing is, I was like, wow, it looks a lot like how we do it. I mean, you do a nice roof raise, good windows, good spray foam. You know, they're trying to be thoughtful. And these aren't professionals, so I'm not going to grill them too hard. But because they're touting their shit so much, I'm just going to remind them that their shit still does stink, just like the rest of us. So I want to talk about the specs on their electrical system because they were proud of it. And I think their electrical system is going to do nothing but disappoint them. And the purpose of this is to show what they bought, how they designed it, and why it's going to fail, and how you can do better for less money or a whole lot better for the same amount of money. So their system, and I suspect they were sponsored by Battleborn because they have 4 Battleborn batteries going into their build. And it's funny, when Regretless, Alyssa, and I were designing her electrical system, Battleborn actually wanted, oh, I guess we should add Battleborn to the list of brands that will never sponsor my channel. Battleborn wanted to sponsor her project, but when we told them the specs on her build, we were trying to hit 13 kilowatt hours of storage. That was going to take 13 of their batteries at the time. We didn't have space for 13 batteries. I mean, and that would have cost like over $10,000, which is insane. So we went with different companies who also make batteries. I have news for anyone who thinks Battleborn's particularly special. All of the cells are made in China, okay? What you're paying for is where it's assembled, the quality control, and the design going into it. And there is not a monopoly on any of that stuff. And I will tell you right now that we get great quality batteries that are made in China, QC'd in China, and then QC'd again here in America that have 10-year warranties that are a third the cost of Battleborn's. So just something to think about. So let's talk about this particular system in mind. So these folks, they're trying to go all electric, which is cool, although they're using diesel heaters for their heat in the wintertime. So I'm not sure how they came up with this, but here's what they've got going on. So for their power bank, for their batteries, they've got four of these game changer uh, batteries by Battleborn. They are, I think, 270 amp hours, which what does that break out to? It's like 3.24 kilowatt hours, which is the only useful measurement of energy storage in my book. Oh, is this showing up backwards? Son of a gun. Is that backwards? Oh my God. And I have the whiteboard out and everything. Okay, well, just bear with me then. This is my first time, so forgive me. Here's the deal. They spent or got about $9,500 of free batteries, or paid $9,500 for these batteries. Those batteries that they got only add up to 13 kilowatt hours of storage. Okay, that's all you have to know. 13 kilowatt hours is the size of their battery bank. The inverter that they're using is a 15,000 watt inverter, which is like so insane. Why would anyone use a 15,000 watt inverter? The reason why someone would use a 15,000 watt inverter is because they are using an electric on demand tankless water heater. This electric on-demand tankless water heater, it doesn't use any power until you're using it. And then it uses a ton. And it uses 13,000 watts when it's in operation, okay? So you're like, well, that's kind of cool though. I mean, what's the pain, what's the problem with that? The problem with that is a thing called idle consumption or self-consumption or standby current consumption. Their inverter, anytime it's on, is using 225 watts. And I know you can't see that. It's using 225 watts just for being on. And in their system, they don't have anything run by DC directly. So their inverter always has to be on if they're using electricity. 225 watts, 24 hours a day, okay? That adds up so fast. Let me explain that to you. So 225 watts times 24 hours a day, that's around 5.5 kilowatt hours of power a day just to keep the inverter on. That's just to have it available. You're not using any of that for any of your appliances, your lighting or anything. It's just sitting there being wasted, keeping this huge inverter ready to go. Keep in mind, their battery bank only holds 13 kilowatt hours. So they're using 5.5, which is about 40% kilowatt hours a day just to keep their inverter on and ready to go. Are you seeing the problem here? Let's compare that now with a system like we did for Regretless or a system like that's on Ben's bus. We don't ever use electric on-demand water heaters. If someone wants an electric water heater, we will use a tank. And the tank itself acts like a big thermal battery. We can store energy in it in the form of heat. So when the sun's out and things are shining, we run the heating element and we get that tank nice and hot. And these tanks are so insulated, they can keep that water hot all the way into the next day. So you store the energy while you can, you slowly feed it into it at a rate of, a few hundred watts or so over the course of a whole day, and you've got hot water and it's great. And the cool thing is if you do what I'm doing, which is using a DC heating element, these DC heating elements mean that you're bypassing the inverter altogether. So the energy load required by the water heater isn't being pulled off the inverter. So you're saving your inverter capacity for things you really need, like doing off-grid welding and shit. So our systems, we always incorporate as much stuff we can as a DC load. And you can ask Alyssa, you can ask any of our clients about this. We do that because inverters are expensive, and the bigger they are, the more self-consumption that they have. So we're always trying to keep our inverters as small as possible. And the nice thing is too, if you're really not using the juice, you can just turn your inverter off at night. So maybe your fridge is DC, your water pump's DC, your water heater's DC, your vent fan is DC, all your lighting is DC, your cell phone charger's DC. You can live very comfortably with your inverter off. And in situations where power usage is critical, maybe in the darkest days of winter, the longest nights, the coldest nights. You're trying to save all your power because your solar panels are covered in snow. You shut off your inverter, and that saves another 25 watts of continuous use. And you're just cruising along on your DC power alone. That is flexibility where if you're going to be serious about this shit and you want a high performing system, you got to have it. You just got to have it. There's no reason not to do that. And so, anyway, back to this build I'm talking about. They think their stuff is the hot shit. And so you look at their AC panel. Well, they have a big ass 100 amp AC panel, the kind that I have in my house. Okay. Everything is AC. They've got separate circuits for lighting, security cameras. The fridge has its own circuit. I mean, it's insane. First of all, you don't need a separate circuit for all that shit because nothing's going to overdraw a 15 amp circuit. All the LED lights in this shop are using less than 15 amps. Okay. And yet this bus build has a dedicated 15 amp breaker just for their puck lights. I mean, that to me shows a lack of electrical understanding. And if you're going to have that lack of understanding, but still have the courage to say that your build is pushing the envelope somehow, well, you're going to get my attention and I'm going to just show up to try to put you in check. Or at the very least, tell everybody else why what they did is wrong. So back to the business at hand. So these folks, they spent 9,500 bucks, or they have $9,500 in free batteries, whatever. They've got only 13 kilowatt hours of storage. And because they chose such a big ass inverter, they are using 40% of that, 5.5 kilowatt hours a day, just keeping the inverter on, which means their total usable capacity every day is the 13 kilowatt hours that they have in the battery bank minus the 5.5. And I think if I add that up right, that's like 7.5 kilowatt hours a day, which is now the system is very small. If you only have 7.5 kilowatt hours a day of usable, that's not a whole lot. I keep on bringing up Alyssa's bus, but that was just the last thing we did. She has 13 kilowatt hours of battery bank available to her. And because of the way we built her system, her standby consumption on her inverter is a tenth of what these folks are. So she's using less than a kilowatt hour a day to keep her inverter on. And she doesn't even have to keep it on if she doesn't want to. So she still has about 12 kilowatt hours a day remaining to use. So I hope you're starting to see the issue. These folks' plan is to throw more money at it. And I think that's foolish because they've already thrown a ton of money at it. If they had taken their $9,500 and bought, say, for example, server rack batteries, which that's what we use, that's kind of becoming a new industry standard for us. If you spent $9,500 on server rack batteries, you wouldn't get 13 kilowatt hours of storage. You wouldn't get 15 kilowatt hours of storage. You wouldn't get 20 or 25 kilowatt hours of storage. You would get 31 kilowatt hours of storage. If they had just taken that money and instead of buying these bullshit Battleborn batteries, bought some server rack batteries that are lithium iron phosphate, have all the same features, they just don't have that fucking logo on them, they could have gotten well over 2.5 times. They could have gotten 2.5 times the amount of batteries and battery storage. If you have that much storage, then losing 5.5 kilowatt hours a day to your stupid inverter is not so painful. But let's take it another step farther. So let's say they spent that money that they gave to Battleborn and bought good batteries. So now they have a battery bank that's 2.5 times bigger. Now let's see what else we could do that might make the system better. If they ditch this 15 or 13 or 14,000 watt inverter that they have, which was about $4,000, which they only needed, keep in mind, because they are trying to do the electric on demand thing, and went with a tanked electric water heater that was run off of a DC heating element that could be configured, which, by the way, you can't configure a tankless unit to use waste electricity to heat water because it doesn't have a tank to store it. A tanked unit, which is what I'll have in my bus and what Ben has in his, you can use to store energy in the form of hot water, in the form of thermal energy. Whenever there is a surplus of solar and your batteries are charged, just dump it in, turn on the heating element, get that water really hot. It could have gone that route. I'm sure that the tanked water heater would be cheaper than the tankless one that they bought. There's no question there. And then they could have way downsized and gone with maybe, say, a 5,000 watt inverter, a 5,000 watt unit, the Quattro from Victron. It's going to use around 36 watts um, at standby. And I think that number is actually even high. It might be lower than that. So we've just reduced their standby consumption almost by a whole order of magnitude. So instead of spending 5.5 kilowatt hours a day on just keeping their inverter running, maybe they're only spending, I don't know, zero point 0.8. We'll just say 1 kilowatt hour a day keeping their inverter running. So now they're down to 1 kilowatt hour a day just to keep their inverter on. So that means that their total usable capacity out of their batteries per day, they went to a 31 kilowatt hour battery bank. Say we subtract the 1 to keep the inverter running. Now they have 30 kilowatt hours a day to use. Whereas on the same setup that costs about the same, okay, on hardware and everything, they only have 7.5 kilowatt hours. Painful. And now if we go deeper, if we get their lighting on DC, their hot water on DC, and do all of these other efficiency improvements that don't cost any money, they just cost a little bit of time, research, and wiring in a DC system, they have a system that they could potentially turn the inverter off completely and not even have those issues of standby consumption or idle consumption or self-consumption, however you want to talk about it. So I reached out to these people. I, as politely as I could, tried to explain to them the issue in their system, and they just weren't willing to hear it from me. And that's fine. At the end of the day, they will be the ones that suffer. But I was like, God, I got to share this with people, because if you're considering doing that type of a system, first of all, don't ever do electric on demand water heating. That's super foolish. If you want on demand water heating, that's fine, but go propane. Just do that, because the amount extra you will spend and the headaches that I hope I just made clear setting up an electrical system that can handle that far outweigh any perceived benefits of doing a tankless system. If you have the space on your bus, if you have a bigger bus, do a tank system, even a tanked propane system. There are actually propane and electric tanked heaters out there. So you can have the best of both worlds. You could have an electric element that's run off your solar when the solar is plentiful, but say it's the winter, or say you really need the extra juice or whatever, you can just flip on the propane burner. Boom. That's overkill in the right direction. That's intelligent overkill, which is different than what I was seeing these influencers doing. Um, I hope this is informative to you. I know I'm talking fast, and I know my whiteboard is mirrored, so I'm going to have to fix that in the next video. But I just wanted to explain to you all why I felt like that system was so disappointing. I also thought it was funny. They were touting their battery bank as being impressive. You know, they've got 270 amp hours at 48 volts. That's only 13 kilowatt hours. I mean, we put that much on a short bus all day without thinking about it. I mean, the bus behind me here, that's got 40 kilowatt hours in it. I mean, we're talking now at that point half of what a Tesla has for only a little bit more than what these Battleborn batteries cost. And my last thing I have to rant about, because this is something I see a lot of folks doing and it just drives me up the freaking wall. So we've decided long ago, right, that 12-volt based house battery systems are not the most practical, because when you are trying to input or extract power at a low voltage, which is 12 volts, the amperage is just astronomically high. Okay. And whenever you get into high amperage, you need thick conductors. There's a potential for heat, shorts, fire, problems. Okay. So people step up to 24-volt systems and 48-volt systems. And pretty much everything we do here is a 24 or a 48-volt system. That's great. That's the way to go for sure. What's a problem is that these Battleborn batteries that these folks were using, they were 12-volt batteries. Well, what's the problem with that, Charlie? I'll tell you the problem with that. You have to wire those up in series, okay? So you have your 12 volts, the second battery makes it 24, the third makes it 36, and the fourth makes it 48 volts. That's all well and good. And back in the days of lead acid batteries, which is where I got my start, that's not a problem. You know, that's fine. They're all going to behave the same. Now, in these lithium batteries, inside each one of those 12-volt batteries is a little computer called a BMS, and that is monitoring cell voltages across the individual cells of the pack. It's monitoring their temperature. It's making sure they're not too hot or too cold. It's making sure that they're not being over discharged, or that they're being discharged at a rate that exceeds what they're capable of handling. Okay. Well, that doesn't seem like a problem, right? Well, it becomes a problem if one of those computers has an issue where it malfunctions, or if one of those cells inside each battery pack goes bad, or if one of those batteries it's in a colder part of the battery compartment and it gets too cold, and say the BMS doesn't like what it sees and it cuts that battery out of the system. So that one battery goes offline. The other three batteries in this hypothetical, well, this is a real system that these folks are going to have to live with. That system, one of the batteries goes offline, all of a sudden you only have a maximum possible voltage of 36 volts. That's not going to be high enough to keep any of your loads running. Your inverter is going to shut off and you're going to be without power. So one of your three batteries goes down. It's the same as all four of your batteries going down. And it's easy to happen when there's a BMS, which is the computer that's monitoring the batteries involved. Back in the days of lead acid, there were no computers. It was lead plates dipped in electrolyte, in a plastic container. It's going to do what it's going to do, and no computer is going to get in the way. That's why you could ruin those batteries so easily. That's why the scenario I just described, where if one battery goes bad, you're totally fucked. We never and have never and will never build a system that involves putting in series lithium or BMS regulated batteries of any chemistry. Because if one of those BMSs decides to take the battery out of the system, your whole system goes down, which is why when we do a server rack based battery system or any other type of lithium battery based system, each battery module is built to the voltage, the operating voltage of the house battery bank system voltage. So in a 24-volt system, we use 24-volt batteries. In a 48-volt system, we use 48-volt batteries. And we do that so that if one battery goes down, all those batteries wired in parallel, your operating voltage doesn't change. You just lose capacity. And isn't that how you would want it? That's how I would want it. That's how we do it around here. So this is all stuff, in Battleborn, they don't tell that because that doesn't sell batteries. That means they have to go and reinvent and make a 12 volt, a 24 volt, and a 48 volt version of the same fucking battery. And they don't want to do that, which is funny because they charge the most out of all of them. If you're doing the server rack batteries, I can tell you, we use Signature Solar around here. They make in the same format and the same total energy capacity as far as kilowatt hours go. You can get a 12 volt, a 24 volt, and a 48 volt battery. 12 volt is 400 amp hour, 24 volt is 200 amp hour, and the 48 volt is 100 amp hour. They're all 5.1 kilowatt hours of storage, and they're all pre-configured to the native voltage of your house battery bank. And if you do it that way, and they're all wired in parallel, if one goes out, your whole house isn't out of commission. So I find it interesting at the end of the day that these influencers out there who have just about as many followers as I do are touting their electrical system, which is not only just grossly inefficient, a huge waste of money, but it's also putting them in a very, in my view, fragile predicament where if one battery goes out, they're totally fucked. And furthermore, all it's going to take for them is 2.5 days without sun and their system is out. And that's assuming they're not using any energy at all. That's just by having their system on. So forgive me for getting on the soapbox, but this is why I am so passionate about what I do now, which is solar consultations, helping people design systems that I know will work because I have real world experience of at this point, maybe 100 off-grid systems under my belt. I can tell you what will work for your needs based on what you're trying to do. And on top of that, because I'm a distributor for Victron and for Signature Solar, I can get you deals that will save you at least a few $100 on your build. Plus, you get my help and the satisfaction of knowing that what I'm designing for you is something that I know will work. And I'm not trying to sell my own services. I'm really just trying to make sure people don't follow influencers' leads who are getting product and shit for free, where these systems are designed just to sell things. They're not designed to actually be useful. So I'm going to end my rant. I'm going to get back in the comment section, but I'm not going to scroll all the way to the top because that'll take forever. I know I just talked a lot at you. You can't understand any of this, but I thought it was important to share. And I think every week I'm going to try to have a topic that I can get this fired up about and touch upon, because these are the little things that people gloss over when they're doing their flashy video builds and stuff that actually make a big fucking difference. Like these folks have a $15,000 to $20,000 electrical system where for the same money you could build something that performs maybe 4 or 5 times better. you know if you're going to spend that much money, don't you want to do it the smart way? I sure do. Anyway, oh my god, it's 8:05 already too. I better hurry up and get off of here. uh Anyway, I think I'm going to be getting off of here soon. Luckily, there's the replay function on this, and this will be live and exist for a long time. So, oh, you're saying the board is displayed properly? Oh, thank God. Well, had I known that, I'm like looking at my camera monitor and everything's sideways. Um. Anyways, you guys, thank you so much for tuning in. I think I am going to get out of here. I have been at the shop for the last 13 hours, and so it's time to get out of here. Um, and I'm here to help you all. Like The whole reason I ever got into this was to help people. I can tell you right now, it wasn't to make money, or I would have retired a long time ago. Ben and I are not rich by any means, but we love helping people first and foremost, and building really badass shit for cool people. And I'm so fortunate that I've got to do this. I've also lost a lot of money doing it, and my way of trying to make it up to myself and to everybody else is to share this information with people. um, and when I get fired up, it's not because I hope you believe me when I say it's not because I have something to sell, because I really am not interested in selling people stuff. I just want to help people. I hate seeing good people who, for them, a bus build might be all of the money they have, and then they trust an influencer, or they trust somebody selling something to take their money and lead them in the right direction, and they end up spending a bunch of money, all they have, and they get a system that doesn't work or lets them down or is maybe even unsafe. And I see that in electrical systems, I see that in builds as a whole. And even in the people selling used buses out there, they're selling rust buckets for top dollar prices, and it just makes me sick. And I hate seeing that, and I hate seeing the influencers out here who don't know what the hell they're talking about, positioning themselves as experts. And so this is me planting a flag, and thank you for seeing the flag and coming and tuning in. And if there are things that you want to learn about, like, throw it in the comments. I read every comment, and help me decide what information I can share with you on future videos. Um, because this is all about you. I mean, I'm just here to share it with you. So I think with all this, and thank you for the super chats. I'm sure that one is from Jim Ross, man. So you guys are great, and I really, yeah, I feel really special to be on this journey with y'all, and it means a lot. It's good to get back in the saddle and ride the live pony again. So thanks for tuning in. My name's Chuck Cassidy, and we're going to catch you next week. And stick around on Sunday, because you better believe I'll have a video dropping then, and you're not going to want to miss it. In the meantime, take care of each other, be smart, and good luck on all of your projects. See you soon.